Hello guys, welcome back to Super Guy Boy Show, and today we're going to have another JoJo's Bizarre Adventure topical video on the most underrated powerful stands in JoJo's. Now, when we usually have a discussion on what are the most powerful stands in JoJo's, a lot of them do tend to be a lot on the same stands, the same, GR, Tuskak Fort, D4C Love Train, whatever. It's like, it can get a bit annoying and just kind of the same when you're having that conversation. So I feel like it's always interesting to talk about some of the more mid-tier stands that will not be like world destructive levels of powerful, they're still at least should be discussed in the levels of power that they do hold. And a lot of them do tend to get underrated, whether it be kind of like not being remembered due to a very lackluster arc or just whatever. And I'm not saying that none of these are like terrible arcs or anything, but what I'm basically saying is that these stands just do not get enough recognition. So why not shine some light to some of those powerful stands that I think should be discussed, which are kind of cool, kind of powerful, and also at the same time really scary. And also down in the comments, you leave down what you think are the most underrated powerful stands. So I'm gonna be doing a top 5 list on the most underrated powerful stands in JoJo's. Number 5, Horus from Stardust Crusaders. Now this one is a bit more exceptional of why this one doesn't get brought up, because for one thing, White Album exists, Ghiaccio exists, which is a infinitely way more memorable arc and just a way more memorable stand just in general. But I do think Horus deserves a bit more of its flowers to be given. First off, being able to create giant ice crystals powerful enough to launch at people that can crush a person and a car at the same time, that takes a lot of skills. I think this one gets forgotten, and it's actually kind of sad because Horus does have some pretty powerful feats. First off, its range seems to be a very decent one, at least up to, if I had to guess, maybe like 10 to 5 meters, which is pretty good for most stands in JoJo's, which is usually like the more closer range ones. This one also can use the moisturizer in the air and also the moisturizer in the pet shop's body to create also in itself an ice crystal in the body. It is also shown that Pet Shop can use Horus to clean up the wounds of it, so it cannot like suffer the wounds. So yeah, this one, while not being as powerful as White Album in terms of defensive, it definitely has a pretty good offense abilities, being able to just create giant ice crystals. And if y'all want to discuss down below which stand would win, Horus or White Album, which I think would be a very interesting conversation, because White Album is more of a great in terms of defensive and at the same time kind of offensive, but mainly it's the suit itself that makes up most of the stand, while Horus is just more of like the bigger attacks that it can have. So y'all discuss down in the comments. I really wouldn't know. I'm kind of going a bit with Horus, but at the same time with White Album's pretty great defense, and also Gently Weaves is a part of it too. So yeah, y'all discuss down below what you think, who would win, Horus or Ghiaccio. Number 4, Craftworks. Now, I'm going to go through this one a bit more quickly, since most of it, what I'm going to be talking about, is more from a non-canon book, but whatever. So basically, in a simpler way, how Craftworks works is that basically any object or any attack that Craftworks gets its hand on, it will basically fix in place. And let's say the example of Misa's bullets. If it stops Misa's bullets, the user can basically push his finger to put momentum for it to go back towards Misa. So in a way, it can fix place and then send it back to the person if the user wants it. So kind of making it a pretty decent defensive stand. But that's not really why I'm putting it on this list. Why I'm mainly putting it is because of a certain part in Purple Haze feedback, a one shot or a light novel from a while back. And if y'all want to argue whether or not it's like canon or not, I consider it canon a bit, but since Araki hasn't confirmed it, it's a bit up in the air. So y'all discuss it whether or not y'all would consider it. But what I'm basically talking about is that there's a certain scene in Purple Haze feedback where Soleil uses his stand to attack one of the characters, and basically what was it supposed to do was that it was supposed to fix an organ in place. So what I mean by this is that if Craftworks was able to give like a direct shot into the user's, like, I don't know, like the stomach, or like, let's say it punches you straight in the heart, if you move, your heart doesn't go with you. Your heart just rips out of your body because it's fixed in place. And Jesus Christ, Araki, get on this. Make an alternative universe Soleil so you can just draw that scene, because that would look badass to see, because when I was reading it on words, that sounds even way more badass. But seeing it in drawings, that would be really cool to see. And just knowing that Soleil could have had that ability to just basically rip out someone's organs and all that, that just gives it a certain level of kind of like a bit of a destructional power to it. Really, the only reason why this stand would be a little bit lower compared to other kind of defensive stands is really because of its range. It has a very shitty range since it's only mainly just used as a close range defensive stand. But since if we're counting Purple Haze as a canon book, that just shows how Kraftwerks could have easily most likely killed Mista, since Sex Pistols in and of itself isn't that great of a stand. Not a bad stand, but come on, it's not the best in part 5. But whatever. Cool ability, would love to see it drawn. If not, David Productions, just animated, because that'll be badass to see. Number 3, Sky High. Sky High, in my opinion, was done wrong. I love the arc, and it's one of the only few great things from part 6. But basically, how Sky High works is kind of a bit hard to explain. It's more of a vast ability. What it basically uses is that Sky High can control these little animals that are called rods. I'm not going to explain what a rod is. Read the manga. Here's a page explaining it, hopefully. But basically, these rods can just like steal heat from certain things. So what Sky High basically uses that ability is that it can place a bunch of rods to steal heat from one place. And if a bunch of your heat is stolen from that place, your body can just morph into different things or just do crazy things with your body. Mainly, the things we are shown is that Hermes's fingers like got twitched up. We are shown that like your eyelids just start crying, or like who was it? Emporio started peeing all blood, and then we are shown that Jolene could have died if what the cow guy's name, I forgot his name, but basically if he just put a bunch of sky rods all over her brain and all that. We are also shown that it can affect the eyes, basically making it so the frames or whatever, like the movements is given a delay, so she couldn't tell whether or not he was getting closer to an attack. And it would have been, it's like, this ability definitely has potential to being way more powerful than it actually is. But really, one of the only few kind of weaknesses it has is just kind of you having to focus on it. It really depends on the user, because mainly what you have to do is mainly your strategy is basically paying attention. What do I have to use? Can I use it one at a time? And it's shown that yeah, basically it can do a lot of things. And I'm surprised it only lasted one episode, because I mean, if the Skyrods can do all that, who's not to say it can do way more? I would just love to see way more of what Sky High would be capable of, because that just sounds so cool in my opinion. Really terrifying. A bit underrated. Number 2, Underworld. Underworld is basically if Abakio's Moody Jazz was like on 10, because Underworld is so crazy. So basically in basically a simpler term, any memories that the ground remembers, which is basically whatever memories happens on the ground, which if you want to look at its ridiculous weird description of its range, there's a lot of memories that happens there. And basically what he uses that is that any memories that happen on the ground, he can basically use as an attack. He used a plane crash that happened to trap Jolene and Hermes in it, and it's shown that you can't really escape. Of course they did, because of, you know, Hermes's ability and also other things like Emporio. But if we're looking at a bit like, let's say like Emporio wasn't there, they would have died. You can't escape a plane that is basically fated to blow up and all of that. And what I also love is that it's shown that it can just put way more memories. It's not that good of a defensive or just offensive ability, because it's shown that it cannot really attack that well. But if it was given to a way more creative user, just think about all the things you could pull up, especially with its range, just being Orlando, Florida. You can find a bunch of crazy stories to use against stand users. Like, hey, you can use the bath salt zombie. That would be crazy to see. Like, imagine if part 6 was written just today, like all the things we see Florida doing, like we could have a bunch of shit going on. And yeah, Underworld, crazy stand too, with the ability of just how insane of a state Florida just is in general. Now, number 1, for in my opinion, one of the most underrated, and in my opinion also wasted stance in JoJo's. I want y'all to guess. I'll give y'all 5 seconds. Alright, screw y'all. Tusk Act 3. I know what y'all gonna say. How is it underrated? It was used by main JoJo's. I'll tell you why. You introduce, in my opinion, a badass ability and one of the most crazy bullshit arcs in JoJo's in general, and it is barely used after that. Sure, we get a couple scenes of Act 3 being used, but other than that, we rarely see Act 3 used at all. And of course, we could use the excuse of like, oh, well, there wasn't really moments where he really used it, and we are shown that Tusk Act 2 is the default usage that Johnny uses. But goddamn, Act 3 is insane. Like, Act 3 sounds like an evolution from Act 2. You know what Act 2 sounds like like an ability that will be given to like Chocolata. Like, basically you have a hole that's gonna go into your heart for 7 seconds. Like that's like some Chocolata type of shit. What we get from Act 3 is basically we have a stand where Johnny can travel through wormholes and he can just shoot whatever he wants. He basically, the range is basically infinite to him. He can just travel through whatever, and I know there's other things to it, but in my opinion, that's badass. Like, this ability was only used, I think, for 2 chapters for one main fight, which was already crazy enough, and then was used like one last time, and then we never see it again, unfortunately, because Act 3, honestly, really cool ability. Like of course we could discuss about the design, but in my opinion, all of Tusk's designs look kind of goofy, but whatever. But I love how Act 3's ability just was, you know, basically just shooting whatever he wants. He can just hide in there, and then not only that, you can't go into the wormhole. So if you want to attack Johnny in the wormholes, you're gonna get your whole body destroyed. You're basically screwed either way. And like, oh my god, I'm surprised that Rocky didn't use this ability, because like that would have been so cool to see. But of course, we didn't see Act 3 just enough, and this video is basically giving flowers to all of those stands that have been forgotten, unfortunately. So yeah, y'all put down what, in your opinion, are one of the most underrated but powerful stands in JoJo's. I know there's way more that I could mention, and if y'all want a part 2, leave it down below, because there's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot that could be mentioned that I don't think gets mentioned a lot, and that's mainly because when people talk about powerful stands, there's already kind of a quota of what's already mentioned. It's always cool to discuss about other stands in JoJo. So yeah, y'all tell me what y'all, in y'all's opinion, are the most underrated powerful stands. And yeah, hopefully y'all had fun. Hopefully y'all have a wonderful day. And yeah, see ya.